It was the disaster that almost brought down Boeing.
They haven't addressed the inherent instability of this aircraft.
Not one, but two fatal crashes. Hundreds killed, a brand new aircraft grounded.
Is anybody at Boeing taking a cut or working for free to try to rectify this problem?
Boeing in the firing line and a federal safety system in the spotlight.
We made an assumption, and it was a bad assumption with respect to what a pilot would do, and it was wrong.
But was the MCAS software really the only thing to blame?
The record of the Boeing company has been spectacular.
A major flaw uncovered in the air crash investigation.
This is deeply troubling because we're not getting to the cause.
As airlines and passengers now demand to know, is Boeing safe? October 29, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610. The Boeing 737 MAX is a brand new type of aircraft. It lines up on the runway at Jakarta's International Airport. As they prepare to take off, the pilots and the 187 other passengers and crew on board have no idea it will be their final flight.
The Lion Air flight went down with almost 200 people on board. Emergency workers have recovered personal items and some human remains from the sea.
Just 13 minutes later, the plane plunged into the Java Sea, the first major accident involving the 737 MAX, which had only entered service a year earlier. The debris field spanned 280 kilometres. The black box was recovered for analysis, and it didn't take long for local authorities to point the finger at Boeing.
Ini ada kalau kita di gambar sudah memperlihatkan bagaimana.
But then, just 5 months later, came another disaster. Ethiopian Air Flight 302 crashed 6 minutes after takeoff. It was clear this was more than a coincidence.
We're going to be issuing an emergency order of prohibition to ground all flights of the 737 MAX 8.
At this point, Boeing was in crisis mode. The airplane manufacturer, once held up as the gold standard of engineering excellence, now fighting for its future.
Boeing's immensely important to the United States. It's immensely important to the world, part of the global infrastructure and terribly important to the United States.
And the US government, which pays Boeing billions of dollars for military contracts, was demanding answers.
What does accountability mean? Are you taking a cut and pay? Are you working for free from now on until you can cure this problem? These people's relatives are not coming back. They're gone.
It was more than political posturing, as the company's then CEO faced the Capitol.
It's not about the money for me. That's not why I came.
Are you giving up any money?
Congressman, my board will conduct a comprehensive review.
So you're saying you're not giving up any compensation at all? You're continuing to work and make $30 million a year after this horrific 2 accidents that caused all these people's relatives to go, to disappear, to die. You're not taking a cut and pay at all?
Around the world, air safety regulators banned the 737 MAX from flying into their airspace. By the end of 2019, Boeing CEO Dennis Muilenburg resigned.
A lot of the people that went with really top operators that got caught up in this maelstrom of, in fact, what was misinformation.
At Boeing's factory in Seattle, staff car parks were replaced by unwanted planes, row after row, their engines silenced, as attention turned to the role of MCAS in the air disasters.
MCAS itself was actually a really good system, but Boeing made some assumptions that were not correct.
People weren't making trades. Oh, let's we get a lower cost if we can trade safety away for that. That's not what happened.
The MCAS system was identified early on as the cause of both air disasters. It was designed to correct the 737 MAX's pitch when flying at low speed.
Part of the MCAS issue was it was a software. Someone gave it a name. It was a software adjustment, and airlines make software adjustments all the time.
Boeing took the blame. Its relationship with the US aviation safety regulator, the FAA, was also closely examined.
What it spurred was a complete reversal of the FAA oversight of certification. Now that's all been changed back to the FAA having total oversight, and this has obviously changed dramatically the process of certifying aeroplanes and caused huge delays for Boeing.
When the 737 MAX eventually returned to service, it was described as the safest plane flying in the skies. Every inch had been scrutinised by regulators right around the world. But was MCAS really to blame for 2 passenger planes to fall out of the sky?
A lot of the blame that Boeing has either accepted or been or taken on the chin or been focused on is just simply not correct.
Aviation journalist Geoffrey Thomas believes the real culprit was sitting in the cockpit, but it wasn't the software.
The co-pilot flying the plane at the time had actually technically failed his simulated test because he didn't understand the concept of a stall.
This final report from Indonesian investigators first blamed the Lion Air crash on Boeing's faulty design, but it wasn't until the second crash that the investigation itself became part of the story.
What we learned from the French was the Ethiopians took out a large part of the cockpit voice recorder transcript relating to the co-pilot, and the French also said that the plane was lost before MCAS even kicked in because of the actions of the pilots.
Aviation experts now believe the airlines, both Lion Air and Ethiopian, tried to avoid responsibility, and it leads to a lot of serious questions about the investigations into aviation disasters.
Ethiopia isn't the first country to shift blame in an air crash because no country wants to own an air crash, no airline wants to own an air crash.
The final report into the Lion Air crash uncovered damning evidence that the first officer on board was unfamiliar with procedures and had shown issues handling the aircraft during training.
It's pilot training that's come under real intense focus now, and it's interesting that Lion Air and Ethiopian now use Boeing to train their pilots. I think more airlines around the world should be using Airbus and or Boeing to train their pilots to the standard that's required.
Today, the 737 MAX is back in the sky and has already chalked up more than 1 million hours of flying time. But there are still legitimate questions about the future of the 737 program.
The 737 is a 50-year-old aircraft which has been upgraded about 4 times.
Originally designed to service small regional airports, the aircraft's inherent problem is how low it is to the ground. It was a fatal design flaw right from the start, one that Boeing will eventually have to fix.
Boeing is going to have to redesign or design a new 737 replacement.
Boeing still has 4,000 737 MAX aircraft to build. Many of its production problems have now been resolved, and the Boeing company is looking to the next generation of aircraft.
Reports of Boeing's death are really greatly exaggerated.
For now, the company has a long way to recover, but for the United States and the global aviation industry, Boeing really is too big to fail.